you can never have enough bags. And you can never have enough granny squares. So you can see where this is going. We're going to make a granny square bag today. I'm so excited to show you this one. I've been prepping the squares for far longer than squares need to be prepped for. I don't normally do blocking, but I decided to for this one because the structure matters. I'm going to walk you through the whole process, give you an example of how to make up one of the squares that I've been using, and then we're going to construct the bag together. And yeah, we'll see how it finishes off. I'm really excited about this one. I think it's going to be pretty cool. You're going to need 13 granny squares, and you're going to use a cotton blend yarn. So a relatively high, at least 50% cotton blend yarn will just give a bit more structure to the bag, make it a little bit less likely to sag when you're done with it. I used a 4mm crochet hook and Lily sugar and cream yarns. So I used a pink, I think it was called coral, and sort of khaki brown that's I think called jute. And I made 13 of these, and they are solid granny squares. So let's have a look at the pattern for those. Granny square bag time! This is my blocking board where the granny squares have been sitting for about a week. You can see that I stuck the correct size of crochet hook, the 4mm or F, on the board with it so I didn't forget which one I was using. And I popped there as well the cord that I'm going to be using to crochet the handle of the bag with you a little bit later on. The first thing that we're going to do though, thing number one, look at that. Or one finger. The first thing that we're going to do though is we're going to make a granny square just like this together so that you can see what square you're making up. You're going to need 13 of those. So let's get stuck in. I'm going to use some yellow yarn with you today because that's going to show up a little bit better on my desk. But as you can see for the bag, what I did was, let's grab one of those squares. What I did for the bag was I made the central magic circle, and then rounds 2, 3 and 4 in the pink, and then I swapped to this khaki colour for the 5th and 6th round. So if we make round 1 the magic circle, look at that, that's cheeky, little magic circle came open a bit. Pull that tight, look, it's like it never happened. Okay, so we're going to make a magic circle, and the first few rounds I'm going to do it in this lovely yellow because it shows up much better against my black desk. So first thing we're going to do is find the end of that yarn. Where's that little thing gone? So we're going to start off by making a magic circle, and I do it with a magic circle because we're making a closed granny square bag. Let's make this magic circle. So lay your yarn across your hand, wrap it twice around those central fingers, and then pinch with your thumb and your little finger together. Then you're going to get your crochet hook, pop it through the 2 loops, pick up the yarn and pull it through, pick up the yarn and pull it through, and that's your middle magic circle. And now what we're going to do is make the stitches that are going to make up the 4 sides of our granny square. So to make our first double crochet, we're going to do 4 sets of 3 double crochets with the chain in the middle. So we're going to chain 1, 2, 3. So that is the 2 stitches for the side of the double crochet stitch, and then the 1 chain loop for the top, and then we're going to make 2 more double crochets there. This yarn is nice. This is not one I've used before. Now for the sides of the granny square, we're going to do chain 2, and then we're going to make 3 double crochets for each of those edges. And chain 2 again. So the chain 2 is to give that bend at the corner. Although we want to have a complete or solid square, we do need to have something that defines that edge of the square as a corner, and that's what we're using our chain 2 for. So 1, 2, 3 sides complete, chain 2, and 1 more set of 3 double crochets. And then the final chain 2 for the other side. Now before we join that up, I'm going to close my magic circle. So I'm going to pinch here near the bottom, and one of these 2 strands will pull that closed. There we go. And then we're going to pull the tail to close it completely. And there you have your little closed square. And now all we're going to do is going to go through the top of that first chain that we made, which was our first double crochet stitch. So the top of the chain 3, and we're going to slip stitch it to close it. Now there are 2 ways to grow your square out from here. If you're changing colour, you're going to have to slip stitch, come off that colour and attach your new yarn. But if you're staying with the same colour, there is no reason not to work straight from this point. So as you can see, you're at the top of a stitch. So you're going to chain to make the start of the next stitch that's going to go into the top of it. Come into the top of this next one here. Into the top of this next one here. So this is different from a regular granny square because you are crocheting into stitches as well as into gaps. And then into that corner gap, you're going to make 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 more double crochets. So 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 more double crochets. Now I'm going to work the rest of the way around the square with you for this. But we're not going to work up the whole thing because you're literally going to repeat that pattern. You're just going to come through making the same stitches as you go around. So that is a double crochet into the top of each double crochet and a pair of double crochets, a chain 2 and a pair of double crochets into each corner of the square. And you're just going to grow it like that until you get to the point that it's the same size as this one. So we've made 2 double crochets into the corner, 1, 2 chain and 2 more double crochets. I cannot get over how nice this yarn is. What is this yarn? I think it might be a Lion brand buttery or smooth like butter yarn. This is very soft and lovely, as I keep saying, and I'll frog this little demo square when I'm done and I'll make it into something else, probably a toy. But it is important that you do stick with a fairly high cotton blend for your squares that you're making for your bag because it doesn't stretch as much. If you use sort of a more acrylic based yarn, it's going to have this sort of elastic quality that means that when you put things into your bag, it'll change shape. And that is not what you want. You want a bag that looks as good when it's holding stuff as it does when it's hanging on the back of your door or over your arm. So we're nearly all the way around the square now. Let's just make those last pair of double crochets, chain 2 and pair of double crochets into this corner. And at the end of that, once again, to close it, so we're not closing on a chain gap here, so we're not going to chain and then go in, we're just going to go straight in to the top of that chain as well. And now here's a little tip. If you find that you crochet with quite loose tension, either because you're new or that's just how you do it, instead of making a chain 3 at the start of your double crochets, make a chain 2. Now, some people will gasp and swoon at the idea of that, but it actually makes a lot of sense. If your chains are too loose, then you're going to have this sort of gape at a part of all of your squares that doesn't look cool. So just chain 2 instead of chain 3, but don't tell anybody. Right, so we've made up our square. We're going to repeat that. If that's not enough information for that one, then do let me know in the comments and I'll make another quick video just showing working up the whole thing at a little bit of a quicker speed. But I reckon you can go from there. So you're just going to increase up, and then when you want to colour change, you're going to stick your hook through one of the corners, pick up your new yarn, pull it through, and then just start chaining and work into that corner instead. And you'll have some lovely ends to hide, but we're going to worry about that in a minute. So the next thing that we're going to do is dismount all of our squares here, and we're going to pop them all down in the order that we're going to have them, and just make sure that we're happy with how it looks. And I hope that we are, because they've been mounted for quite some time. This is my exceptional design for the granny square bag, wherein I worked out the sort of shape that I wanted and how many granny squares I was going to need. So let's put them all together. We're going to lay them out first as per my beautiful diagram. Can't argue with that, right? That's pretty good. That's going to be a decent sized bag. So I think for some reason that I thought that I wasn't going to get away with not weaving in the ends for these. But that's not the case, is it? So I think I'm going to weave in the ends now before I attach all the squares together. And then we need to think of the best way to attach the squares together so that they look pretty cool. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to weave in the ends. My favourite method of weaving in ends is with a needle. I just think it's quicker and easier. You can hide the ends, they're much less likely to sort of pop out and surprise people at unexpected and frustrating moments. So yes, I'm going to grab my needle and weave in those ends. I did weave a lot of these as I went, as it turns out, so that's good. And that's all the ends weaved in. Okay, so the next step is that we're going to attach those granny squares together. I'm going to make a little bit of a border around the top edge, I think, just to draw it all together as well. And then we'll make the handle. Now, there are several ways of attaching granny squares together. We can do it through slip stitching between the two. We can do it with a single crochet. We could do it with a needle. We could just sew them together with the same colour thread. And each one of those options gives a bit of a different look. So my favourite way to attach two granny squares together is to hold them up to each other like this. Now that is the front sides of those two, so we're going to flip them, and I can tell they're the front because they don't have these defined ridges. And to attach them together, what we're going to do is we're going to take our same coloured yarn, remove the delightful plastic. Delightful plastic removed. I'm going to take the same coloured yarn and we're going to go through the corner first, making sure both back edges, yeah. And we're going to attach them together now. You can either do this straight through the stitches, or you can do it through the back loop of each stitch. And again, it gives a different look for the both. Because I want this to be strong and sturdy, because it's going to be a bag, so it's going to need to carry stuff, I'm going to go through both. So pull the yarn through and just tighten that there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down this row and I'm going to attach each stitch together. So pick up the yarn and pull through, and I'm going to attach them with a single crochet. So yarn goes through both sets of stitches, pick it up, pull it through, pick it up, pull it through. And we're going to do that to join all of the sides that are going to be next to each other in the bag. I'm going to use stitch markers to hold the granny squares together at the edges that you want to attach them at. Now make sure that you've got the back side facing up, and then you're going to go all the way around all those lines, single crocheting them together. When you're done, you can turn the bag the right side out, and it's really beginning to take shape at this point, as you can see. Now, what I do to finish this off is I'm going to go twice around the edge of the bag, making single, not double crochets, single crochets into the edge of it. And the reason I'm going to do this is to make this a bit stronger, because I'm going to put the straps through these holes, and at the minute they're only being held by a fine chain, so we want those to be held by 2 rounds of single crochets as well for when we attach this cord later on. So single crochets all the way around here. I'm going to put needle, we're going to hook through, pick up the yarn, pull through, pick up the yarn and pull through. So you're just putting 1 single crochet in each of the stitches until you get to that stitch right at the very top. And instead of just putting 1 single crochet into that, we're going to help to smooth off that edge by putting 2 single crochets, 1 chain, and 2 single crochets all into this chain space. So 1 single crochet, 2 single crochets, a chain, 1 single crochet, 2 single crochets. Okay, and what we've done is then made a smoother, more defined top to the handle. Now we're going to work all the way back down again, all the way around until we get to this V shape at the bottom. And when we're there, we're going to single crochet those bottom 2 stitches at the bottom of the V together. Here we go, we're approaching the bottom now. So what we're going to do is get ready to put a single crochet into each side and then join them together. So because that has ended there on the chain space, oh blimey, what have I done there? Never crochet at this angle. Right. So what we're going to do is we're going to hook through that chain space, pick up the yarn and pull it through, then hook through the next chain space, pick up the yarn and pull it through, and then pick up the yarn again and pull it through all 3 loops on the hook. And so that's tightened and secured that bottom bit, and then we're going to continue round. So we're going to do 2 rounds all the way around this opening section where our handles are going to go, increasing the border with 2 rounds of single crochet stitches. I think the light is totally different now because it's night time, but we're nearly there. So I've woven in the ends, flattened out the shape of the bag, and I've done 1 of the straps, and I'm going to show you how I did it. So we're going to take this much thicker, slightly elasticated cord and a big chunky 7mm hook. And we're going to pop that through this little handle hole, leave a nice tail of yarn for weaving it in, pick it up and pull it through. Now, nice loose tension for that because you're going to pick it up from there, and then you're going to take the tail, and for each of the first chains that you make along here, just going to move that tail backwards and forwards, and what that's doing is nicely weaving in the end for the handle. And the reason that we want it long is not just because it'll keep it secured and not coming out and looking scruffy, but it also means that if you decide that you prefer a slightly longer length of handle later, then you can do that. And I'm going to make these symmetrical straps, obviously, otherwise that would be strange. And so we're going to make a chain of 50 stitches. What we're going to do is we're going to attach it to the other side, but first I'm going to make sure that it's not twisted up. So pull that nice and straight all the way along there. Lovely stuff. Okay, I'm going to take it and put it through the opposite side, straight through that nice hole there, sending pens flying across the desk. And here again, nice and keeping it loose. I'm going to pick that up and pull it through. Now I'm going to make 1 chain, and then we're going to single crochet into the chain all the way back to the beginning of the strap. Okay, we're going to finish this off now. So we're going to single crochet into the last one, and then we're going to go back through this loop here, creating that nice loop to pull it through as a slip stitch. And now we're going to tie it off, but we're going to be careful, don't worry about this, we're going to neaten that up in a second. So I'm going to cut off a long train. Really blunted these scissors, it's a shame, they were good ones. Okay. Now, but essentially what we need is for this to be secured tightly but without looking ugly. So depending on how you've done it, I recommend either slip stitching again, bringing it through the other side of this loop to even it out. That's probably what's going to look best here. And pulling it all the way through. And then you can sew this back into here. So we're going to need a chunky needle. My preference, see, I have plastic needles. I really do prefer the steel ones. You have to have a big eye for this cord, right? And then we're going to weave that back into the handle for it to be completely obscured. And once it's hidden inside the handle there, you can just snip off those ends and your bag's going to be finished. Let's see what it looks like on. And there you have it. I hope you like it. I hope you make your own. Remember, use a cotton blend yarn, nice and strong. Hopefully you should be able to carry some things with no major problems. You can also find a full written pattern on the Lucy Kate Crochet website. I'll pop a link down below. And let me know what you think. You're going to make your own? Have you made a granny square bag before? Let's chat in the comments. I'm happy crocheting.